All right. So you can check the chat. I posted the prompt in there if you're not familiar with it, if you want to read that and familiarize yourself with it. But for the issue that it's talking about in the prompt, I figured that crime would be a perfect fit because crime has been a relevant issue in this world, since the implementation of law. So, and it still remains a huge issue to this day, and that poses the question, how can we best, most efficiently and effectively prevent crime and improve policing? And as it turns out, AI might just be the key to creating a better society where peace is best held and justice is best served. But how exactly can AI help? One of the best ways AI can help prevent crime or detect crime is through this like augmented surveillance, where high resolution security cameras can have AI monitoring features implemented in them, and they can detect all these patterns and alert authority if suspicious activity is detected. And this obviously has the benefit where an AI can it can be watching 1,000 different cameras with maximum focus on each, whereas a human can watch one, two, three for about an hour until they start losing their attention span. Another way AI can help is through facial recognition, where an unknown suspect, likely from a crime scene photo, is uh, is um, is tried to match with a social media, like sorry, through where an unknown suspect is tried to be found by having an AI search through databases, public databases, such as, social medias, it can be through like Facebook posts and trying to match that with the crime scene photo. And AI can also help through pattern recognition, where let's say you could, apply this to like a GPS system. I could be driving and the pattern recognition could tell me, hey, don't drive through this neighborhood at this time. The crime rate's very high. It would help prevent any bad situations from happening from that. And it can also be used to optimize like scheduling, like police patrolling scheduling, and resource arrangement. It can do this better than traditional data collecting methods could. However, AI is far from perfect at this point in time, so it has its downsides. And this poses the question, is using AI to fight crime ethical? No. I think right now the answer is no, and there's no avoiding that fact. Because bias with AI is really hard to avoid right now. They're practically synonymous. And when we're talking about bias in serious situations like this, it's legitimate grounds for discrimination. And that is a clear violation of Rule 7 of the IEEE Code of Ethics. That rule states, quote, to not engage in discrimination based on characteristics such as race, religion, disability, age, national origin, gender identity, or gender expression, end quote. So obviously, if we have any bias, that's going to result in discrimination that's against that code. I now want to put the pros and cons side by side so we can better compare them. I've already discussed most of the pros on the previous slide, so let me focus on the cons here. Because AI generally is going to generate biased results, that leads to often inaccurate data. It can lead to feedback loops, and it can promote existing biases. I think special attention should be taken when talking about feedback loops, which is where biased data is put into an AI, which then is going to produce biased results. And these biased results are going to be used as training data for other AIs, or it could be that same AI. And this is going to result in like this perpetual promotion of the same bias. And over time, it's going to be harder and harder to eliminate. So that's going to make a biased AI more and more biased over time. But how biased is AI right now anyways? So I compiled some stats to show you the bias of AI. And this infamous 2019 analysis I came across it probably like 10, 15 different times in my research. It showed facial recognition used by the Metropolitan Police had an astounding accuracy rating of 2%. Not so astounding. So that's horrible. And a lot of what that came from is there wasn't enough training data on people with ethnicities other than white. When it was proposed with somebody who wasn't a white male, it would have a very hard time recognizing them. There just wasn't enough information. That was biased information that was going into the AI. But it's also really important to notice that this is a 2019 study. That's pretty old. That's 5 years ago. And when we're talking about, relevant and rapidly evolving technologies, that's way too long. So I went to find, more studies. I found a more recent facial recognition study conducted by Harvard to test the accuracy of facial recognition between peoples of different ethnicities. And while we've certainly evolved from the 2% accuracy, you can notice some, pretty big discrepancies between, let's say, lighter males and darker females. Right here, Microsoft has the best algorithm for this. It's 21% less accurate when trying to recognize a darker female than a lighter male. I mean, just imagine how many people it's going to falsely accuse because of that inaccuracy. And obviously that's discrimination if you're, falsely accusing people based on their race or their gender. And the most recent study I found was a test from the National Institute of Standards and Technologies that shows that facial recognition by AI has drastically improved. A lot of it was with accuracy greater than 99%. But this is when a mugshot was used as the reference photo. If, let's say, a more applicable and lower quality crime scene photo was used as the reference photo, then the accuracy was a lot worse and not desired. And it should also be mentioned that race wasn't mentioned at all in this study. It could be, that made the accuracy lower and they didn't want to disclose that. I don't know. This Harvard experiment was the most recent study I found that discussed race with their accuracy. So with all this info, this is to show you that right now, the drawbacks of using AI to fight crime are currently outweighing the pros. It's, unacceptable if there's any case of discrimination going on. That's just not ethical. So what do we do now? Do we give up? Do we say AI can't fight crime? No, not quite. But instead of looking at the IEEE Code of Ethics to see how we could bend those rules in the favor of the AI, I think we should definitely look at the AI first and see how we could improve that. So to brainstorm ways to get rid of or reduce bias in AI, we need to realize what causes this bias. This could be through incomplete or skewed training data. This can be unconscious or intentional. The unconscious, or called cognitive bias, is when a designer is going to unintentionally input biased data into an AI, which will in turn result biased results. Or you could have a malicious designer that wants to promote an existing bias for some reason, and they can design it like that. I've already discussed feedback loops, and it should also be mentioned this doesn't happen very often anymore, but sometimes the algorithm itself, is programmed in a way that's going to promote existing biases. Obviously, these should be avoided at all times. So now that we know some ways that bias is caused in AI, how can we eliminate it? Unfortunately, this is not terribly clear right now, but it might just need more time to input more data into these AIs so it can create a complete, database of information to make its decisions off of. But as this time progresses, it's important to only be inputting, the most unbiased data we possibly can to ultimately work towards this unbiased AI. This isn't an easy goal because it means, one, we're going to have to improve the diversity of the data teams that input the data into the AI, as well as the data teams that are collecting this data originally. And because there's so much worry of what's going on, what's going in and out of these AIs, we should have these judges that see what come in and what go into the AI and what come out of it to make sure that it's as unbiased as possible, that it's ethical. So with AI's current abilities, there's a lot of caution going on. I mean, we don't want to make this biased result, this unintentionally discriminatory result. And because of these cautions, right, I think it's, essential that the IEEE should include something about intelligent systems when it's discussing its Rule 7, its rule against discrimination. Something that could be added to this rule would be along the lines of, quote, to treat all persons fairly and with respect, and to not engage in or let intelligent systems promote discrimination based on characteristics such as race, religion, disability, age, national origin, gender identity, or gender expression. I think that addition of intelligent systems is, integral, that we don't accidentally create this system that's going to, result in more bias, more discrimination. So the fact of the matter is, getting rid of bias with AI is hard, especially when we're talking about crimes, important things. And we shouldn't be using it to fight this crime as long as AI is present. That which won't give good results. And a lot of people might say that this is an impossible task. There's too much to do. But it's important to realize that this is an issue that if we confront now, we could solve, and it would ultimately lead to a better society for all of us to live in. And those are my references. I'd like to open the floor now to any questions or feedback.
Just a question about, so the goals to, you found an area where the benefits will outweigh the negativity of breaking a rule of ethics. And that one you pointed out was bias. Would it be fair to say that the policy should be written to avoid intentional bias, or to make continual improvement to reduce bias, such that bias is impossible? Or do you suggest that if bias is all possible, then we shouldn't use a system, or should we just work to continually reduce it?
Well, yeah, there's a problem where a lot of people might argue that bias is kind of impossible to avoid because, a lot of people, they can't, make decisions without some sort of bias. But as I was talking about how I would improve the Rule 7, I state that, to the best of our abilities, we're not going to let intelligent systems promote the discrimination. So we wouldn't want any of these to, it could be accidental, that could be true. And we want to make sure that that we have the utmost care when, producing these systems, that it's not going to result in any sort of bias, because that's going to be discrimination, and that is against the code of ethics. It should be avoided at all costs.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Can you describe the difference between accuracy and bias?
Accuracy and bias?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, when we're talking about the facial recognition right here, the accuracy, so let's say right here, for the lighter males, talking about the Microsoft algorithm right here, you can see that its accuracy, it's right below 100%. So when, let's say, we have a crime scene photo of a white male, okay, and an algorithm is trying to find the same white male through a bunch of public databases, a bunch of pictures. It could be Facebook pictures, Instagram pictures, and it's going through all these. And when it finds a potential match, this is saying that, almost 100% of the time, that potential match is going to be correct. But as we go with the darker female right here, which is this bar right here, you see it's about 75%. If we have that crime scene photo and it looks for a picture to that matches that person, it's only going to be right 75% of the time. And because of that, that means inadvertently, these darker skinned females are going to be falsely accused just because of their race.
Could it be possible that this is because the lack of data on
Yeah,
other races?
absolutely. It could be the data teams aren't.
So we have to be careful
Mm-hmm.
because AI lives on information.
Yes.
And if you remember the DNA, for example, it was able to solve many crimes that are 4 years old and etc.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be careful between the lack of information and the quality of the learning than to assume it's a bias.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you're saying, but yeah, I think a lot of it is lack of information and it's resulting in bias. So if we can, give it some more time, give it more information, then ultimately it's going to produce a less biased result.
And a lot of time, the machine, I'm not sure if the learning machine, it can learn its own. There's no algorithm. You bring a lot of information to it, it makes the decision. There's really no algorithm that a judge or a human can write for these cases.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think you should have people that are really analyzing what goes in and what comes out of these algorithms and making sure that it's not making anything, biased from the algorithm or from the data that's going in.
I'm not sure if you've done enough research to see the difference between intention, bias, and accuracy of the machine of the system. There's a gray area there. And the example you brought is simply, I can tell you, there's not enough information about, say, non-dark people, for example.
Yeah, yeah.
If you have a lot of information, the outcome, the statistics may be different.
Mm-hmm. So,
and
yeah.
There are a lot of signal processing that could be applied before you bring the data to the machine for learning purpose. All of these have worked together to improve the accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
Once the accuracy is improved,
Yes.
then the human subjectivity will go away, or at least will be significantly reduced.
Mm-hmm. So are you asking me to go back in and research it more in depth?
Now, don't necessarily blame it on bias as human subjectivity or a human bias.
Absolutely.
Is also the stable here. Probably if somebody does it 10 years down the road, it'll be much different than what it is right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
There's more data available in the machine. They learn on data. So there are two. So I want you to be able to say, yeah, the lack of correctness, if you will, of the decision may be due to lack of information, quality of information, and possibly subjectivity.
Yeah.
Let's say, and possibly because he seemed to be biased toward AI is providing biased information or biased decision. That's kind of hard to prove.
And does it necessarily matter if the AI system is, I guess, worse in this case, detecting, dark skinned females versus light skinned males? It's not like it's throwing one gender and race into jail and not the other. It's just unable to detect that race as easily.
Yeah, because there's not enough data.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think for sure that is a problem, because what that'll do is that'll falsely accuse these people, and then police will have to be like, oh, they'll have to go and make sure that these people didn't actually commit the crime, and that that can look really bad, and that is really bad, to have all these false accusations.
I agree with you, but I remind you again that people have, some of them have been in jail for over 4 years, and thanks to DNA, they were able to
Yeah.
get out of jail. That's information. So if you add the DNA, for example, as an additional information instead of relying on images,
Yeah. Okay.
then you may get a different outcome.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because if the AI system has to converge to a solution, and there are not many non-dark skinned people, the likelihood is going to be to bias toward dark skinned people because the database have very little.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
I think it's a good presentation. Just be on the cautious side that yes, human subjectivity will never go away.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But in this case, AI would be more on the positive side if information and proper information and advanced increase in data collection and signal processing improves.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can bring a picture before you process, say, remove noise and things like that. Even a human being cannot recognize that. But if you apply some techniques before you send to the machine, then the machine will be able to make a better decision.
All right. Is there any other feedback or questions that you guys have? All right. Well, if we're all good, I appreciate absolutely every piece of feedback. I appreciate you guys taking your time to listen to my presentation. Unless there are any objections, I think I'll call it a day and I'll let you guys enjoy the rest of your break.
All right, thank you. You did a good job.
Thank you. All right.
Bye-bye.